So I always feel like I can talk loud. Okay. So I just want to thank everyone for being here today, because the one step that our first speaker had mentioned is we have to be proactive and also be present, right? So I'm glad we took a little break. Sometimes I can feel a little bit disjointed, but it's good because we took a moment to be present and regroup and come back. I want to just, before I even start, I like to get a scan of the room and who I'm talking to. So I'm going to ask my first question. How many people in here would describe themselves to be a caregiver? I want you to snap. Okay. Snap if that's personal or professional. A caregiver. Okay. Both, right? How many of you are caring for someone right now, child or adult?
Does adult count?
Yeah, just triple it up. Who in here would define themselves as a natural caregiver? And I define natural caregiver meaning sometimes you will go above and beyond before the question or the ask even happened. Okay. Who in here, when drained, keeps going as being a caregiver? This is me on a normal basis. Who in here lies and says they're fine when they're not? How many find it easier to care for something else other than yourself? How many of you feel guilty for taking care of yourself? What would change if you treated yourself with the same compassion you did for others? And I want to take a moment and think about that. What would you do differently if you just treated yourself as good as you treat others? So I say all of these questions because it's something that I do on a regular basis. I was just talking about myself, right? And many of you can concur with that as per the snaps and the sounds, because when you are a caregiver and you're an innate caregiver, you, just by the word, you are a giver, right? And sometimes when you are a giver, you really don't know how to replenish back. And so I called this session, I met Tulo on Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Yeah. And we're talking to her, and she was like, she was explaining to me the whole session, and I was like, well, I have some things in my toolkit that I talk about. It's generally about dementia. It's generally about caregiving, but I said, you know what, I'm going to switch this up. And I want to talk about it in the sense of a garden. Anyone in here with a green thumb? Okay, good. We're all the same then, because in the sense, I right now have an AI garden at my house, and I don't know if y'all know about these AI gardens. An AI garden, it's called Gardein, right? And my AI garden right now, as you would think, should be flourishing, right? Because I'm paying $39.99 for this thing to self-water and give me some plants. Because I am going to talk about myself. I am a woman who's trying to do too many things at one time, and if I can have anything on autopilot, I would love for my herbs and spices to be just glaring in the center of my kitchen, and when I want to be fancy, oh, did you want some mints for that drink? Oh, did you want a little thyme? I got you. Look how pretty my garden. But right now I have 6 plants that are thriving and 22 failing. It's okay. I've accepted that to be my AI garden. However, I have on my table back there, if you walk past it, I have one plant that's thriving and one plant that's half dead, right? And many of you, as we talked about who has a green thumb, you may have a moment where you're like, you know what, I want to try some gardening. You walk past Lowe's, you walk past Home Depot, H-E-B, and saw these beautiful plants and said, you know what, I'm going to buy me one of these plants and put in my house. But then you also may question and say, I know myself, if I buy this plant, it's not going to thrive, right? And so I use this analogy just on the simple facet of saying caregiving is no different than tending to your garden. So thank you so much for the beautiful introduction, but I also want to tell you why I'm here and how I even got here. So 15 years ago, my brother was a senior at Purdue University, and at that same time, I was in my final year finishing my PhD, and you couldn't tell me I wasn't in the right place at the right time in my life. I was the high performance director for the United States Olympic Committee, and I worked with high professional athletes, and I felt like this is what my dream was. This was my soul-driven career. This is what I've been in school for how many years, because I'm doing my PhD to study sports and athletics. Now, I get a call. My brother's been in an accident, and actually the call didn't come from anyone. I was actually on the phone with my mother, and my mom and I are on the call, and she said, Michelle, I just clicked over, and I got a call, and it said to start praying for David. She's like, I don't know what that call was about. And I said, well, call them back. What do you mean start praying? So when she called them back, they said my brother was airlifted, he was ejected from a car, had another car ran over him, and they don't know if he's gonna make it. So I'm in Jamaica, my mom's in New York, this accident happened in Indiana. And so with that said, I get to the airport, my mom gets to the airport, we all try to get there. And one of the things I realized in that moment after hearing your speech, right, it was a whole bunch of those somatic responses, right? However, when we got there, my mom knows me, and I will cry on the drop of a dime. And my mom got there and she said, Michelle, you cannot go in that room until you tighten up. Because the energy that I want in this room for my brother to thrive in his health, even though he was in a coma, is one of positivity. And if you come in there and cry, we can't do that. And I was shocked. I felt hurt at the time, but it was the best thing she could have done. And that was a boundary. And I respect that now looking back, because sometimes we have to create boundaries. Until you can stand, and I respect my mother so much because she said in that moment, which was probably hard for her to tell me, I need you to be at your best before you can walk in this room. So that's how I got here. Now, I changed my career. I ended up buying a franchise, and now I care for seniors. And one of the things that I always talk about my brother's accident to how I got here, but I don't know how many people in this room has ever been witness to a miracle. Anyone? Anyone? Okay. I hadn't experienced it until my brother. So my brother is, after his accident, diagnosed paraplegic. I went home back to New Jersey to rebuild ramps and reset our whole life for him. And when I got back, this is about 4 months he's in the hospital. He's now in a rehab hospital because we're also navigating how to get him from Indiana to New Jersey, right? When I get back to Indiana, my brother is in a rehab hospital, and he said, last night I felt a shock in my body. And I was like, what you mean shock? And I was like, did you put your finger in the socket? What you mean shock? He's like, no, I felt a shock in my body. And 2 days later, my brother started having feeling in his foot. All right? My brother has now run multiple marathons, now walks today, okay? And he always makes sure when he runs in a marathon, on the back of his t-shirt, I was a diagnosed paraplegic. For anyone behind him to give them strength that he can keep moving. And I cry all the time. Like I started the story, I will cry on the drop of a dime. Because if you witness a miracle, you know change and other powers that be are so much stronger. So I want to talk about caregiving. So caregiving, to me, runs in 4 different tips. I can tell you more about my story, but what is meaningful to me and what I want you to leave with is that so many of us are caregivers in this room today. And being a caregiver, how do you manage the stress when it happens? Because I will tell you, as a daughter, as well as a sister from my brother, I felt that I was a superhero. I felt like, okay, I got this. My job is now remote, check. I'm gonna do night shift, mom do day shift, And then I'm gonna figure out all the logistics behind. I'm gonna get on the plane, I'm gonna figure out all the things. I can master these logistical problems. And I see mostly women in this room, and we are masters of logistical problems. So, but what I didn't do, I wasn't caring for myself, and the biggest impact was to the patient, because the patient didn't wanna hear it from his sister. Does that make sense? And so when we're caring for a loved one, sometimes we believe as the primary person that we have to do it all, right? That we have to always be there. And I want to just kind of pass these out. I have it at my table. I don't know if you guys have it, but it's to tend your garden, 4 tips for caregiver emotional survival. So I created this on Thursday morning after talking to Tilly on Wednesday night. And it's just tips, seriously, on what I know to be true after 13 years in the caregiving space. And the first one is water your own roots. It is no different than what you hear when you get on a plane and they say, put your mask on first before the person next to you, right? So when you water your own roots, what is that? Can someone tell me what is a tip that you would put down for watering your own roots? This is interactive. Tell me, shoulder to toe. One thing you can do for yourself.
Spa day.
What is it?
Spa day.
Spa day, right. Anything else?
Going on a walk.
Going on a walk. Sleep. So for many of us, self-care can be aesthetic things, right? Could be doing your nails, your hair. But I would challenge you, how can you do your soul care for self-care, right? What can I do deeper to help better myself and really ground your water in your roots, right? The second thing is wearing your gloves, right? I talked about my story with my mom, right? And how she said, you're not allowed in this room. That is my mom wearing her gloves. She put a boundary with me and my emotional tears to not walk into that room, right? So what would be a good boundary for anyone? Out loud.
Putting your phone on silent after a certain time.
I love that. Did you everyone hear what she said? She said put her phone on silent after a certain time.
Delegate.
Do not disturb. And then delegating. That is huge. The other one, next step, is feed the soil. How can we feed our soil? I know for myself, one story I want to quickly talk about is being in business for 13 years, I get many calls of people in very high stress situations caring for their loved one. And one person I want to speak about, I'm going to call him Doug, that's not his name, but Doug is wanting to use a new program that I'm doing for the next 7 years. It's a research program called The Guide. His wife has Lewy body dementia, and if anyone is familiar with Lewy body dementia, they can actually have repetitious behavior that you really can't redirect as someone that may have Alzheimer's or other forms of dementia, right? Also may be behavioral and very hard to control, right? So when he called me and I told him you qualify for the Guide program, he's also not able to afford private pay. I said, well, you can do this program for the next 7 years. You can get 72 hours of benefit, but you're also going to get a care navigator that's going to help you through each of these steps that you may need. Because when you're caring for someone with Lewy body dementia, they need a toolkit. They need tricks and trade to redirect and help them. And many times, if you have a loved one that has dementia, they probably haven't tested them to see what form of dementia they have, right? So we're trying to help and care for them. And so this care navigator helps you through that. When I call him and I say, okay, you've been approved for your 72 hours, let me help you, Doug, because he's very stressed out. He has been the primary caregiver for his wife for the past 10 years with this disease, and he has never left his house, y'all. He has never left his house, and it is a very sad situation. When I said, okay, you're approved for the hours, he said, Michelle, you know, with all due honesty, I'm so stressed out. I really now I got to train your people to do it my way. Nah, I'm good. I'm actually not going to use the care. I said, well, Doug, after all this, at least try it one day. You can be there while the caregiver's there. And he had such anxiety And he is so familiar of the uncomfortable, he didn't want to step into something that would help him. I'm going to back up the story a little bit. That was 3 months ago when I had the first call with him. He then went to the hospital for a stroke, right? Now what happens to his wife at home? The blessing in the story is that we've already done paperwork. I get a call from the case manager at the hospital saying, is this one of your patients? And I'm like, well, Doug isn't, his wife is. And she's like, please go care for the wife because he's now in the hospital. I can't tell you how often I get these calls because what we have to do is plan for these incidences, right? And Doug's story is no different. Doug's story to me, similar to our first speaker, he is a wilted plant that just needs some repruning, needs some watering, but he's not taking the simple things that she just mentioned earlier, which is just 10 minutes. Whatever that feeds your soil. For me, I'm running on red on a normal basis, right? I'm up here telling y'all this, but this is therapeutic for me to stand here and talk about this. Because as much as I am a caregiver for my day-to-day people in my life, and I'm caring for people for work, it can be draining on me. So I constantly have to reiterate to my book of things. And my biggest thing for me for soul care is to go to church. And I didn't care hell or high water today. I was going to get up out of my bed at 8 a.m. and go to church and feed my soil because that's what I needed. And for Doug, he now had to wait for a traumatic incident to occur to now feed his soil. So I just want to just remember that. And if you see a wilted plant, right? Or maybe you have a half-dead plant in your house that you walk by, because I had a couple in the past, and I put it in the corner, right? Because I'm like, I don't want to really see it. I want to put all my thriving ones for my guests to see, but that half-dead one I'm going to put in the corner. Why don't we bring the half-dead plant to the front, right? Why don't we re-soil it and try and grow it again, right? It was very easy for me to go H-E-B and pick up some $2.99 plants because they were half-dead, right? The value is down. How do you increase your value, right? So the other thing is a healthy plant. I think a healthy plant is your garden, right? And that is your thriving garden that can flourish, can replenish plants. But can anyone give me an example of like your day-to-day life of something thriving when you're a caregiver? Something that you're doing that's thriving. Waking up, right? I mean, simply as in the role of caregiving, we have so many tasks to be done, right? So has anyone heard the term sandwich generation? Mm-hmm. Okay. Sandwich generation means you are caring for your child, you are the caregiver, and you're also caring for your parents. Those people are superhero. So anyone in this room, I clap it up to you because that is not the task for the week. Okay? Because when you're caring for someone, I don't care if you have all the resources in the world. You are still worried about that person, even if you have the means to have a caregiver caring for the little one and the big one, right? My aunt said to me on the phone today, once a man, twice a child. Anyone know that saying? All right. In the same context, it relates to caregiving. And for me, caregiving is no different than our garden that requires work, but it's meaningful work when you tend to it the right way. So when you pour into yourself, similar to what we mentioned earlier, I'm not going to do the exercises again because we've already taken our deep breaths for the day and we're present in this moment. So I had that here. And we've talked about Mr. Bernie. So when I talked about Doug, have you ever felt like him before? Burnt out, now your health is at risk. There are so many caregivers right now that are caring for someone, and the statistics generally go in that direction that the caregiver will die before the person they are caring for. And it's a reason for that, right? Because they are so burnt out, so stressed, and not able to flourish their own garden. So you're constantly doing everything for yourself, not for yourself, for someone else. So the last question I asked when we were doing the survey is how about you treat yourself equally like you do for others, right? What can you do to pour into yourself on a day-to-day basis? So self-care is survival, and it's just as simple as maybe taking 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half a day. I myself have been running on red like I told you earlier, right? And what I've said to myself is that I've run red all week. Now I'm going to take a break. So when I leave this little situation right now, I've already canceled 2 of my girlfriends want me to go out. I said, you know what? I really want to go. However, I have to take care of Michelle today because I'm not going to be worth anything when I go with them. Reason being is many of you may be able to relate to this experience. I love to listen to a podcast. But what I've realized for my self-care, I will sit in silence. I talk for a living. I work with 250 other employees in my office. I don't want to hear one more thing. So when I'm driving in the car, and sometimes I'll have my godchildren, they're like, Auntie, turn on the radio. No, I just want to sit in silence. And I don't know if it's just, you may have to tell me in therapy what that is, but I like to drive in silence. It gives me peace. It gives me homage. That is what my soul needs to replenish. And you may have your own way. Whatever your way is to replenish your soil and dig it up and water it good, but not overwater it, right? Because you can still have a half-dead plant if you overwater it, right? And so many caregivers that I know, I'm going to compare it to Doug that I mentioned, he was overwatering the care, right? I told you he never left his house, and this is a real story. So we talked about all these things. I'm sorry, y'all. So one of the things I want to leave you with is you're not failing. So the final note on here that I put is weathering the storms. I'm so happy the sun is out because when I practiced this earlier today, I said, oh, it's going to be raining. It's misty outside. That's how it was at 8 o'clock this morning when I went to church. However, you have to weather the storms, right? There is going to be storms no matter your life. But when I thought about it a little bit deeper, I love when it rains. I love when it storms. You know why? Because then I have reason to cancel all my other plans. I'm so sorry, it's raining outside. I don't like to drive. And then I can hug up in my sheets, grab my 2 little Yorkies, and we just cuddle. And that is no better feeling for me to weather the storm. So no matter when the storm comes, when caregiving arises, I know that I can look at it from another perspective, being positive, that I need that watering. I need that storm to come present in my life to feel my soil refurbished, right? So what will you do for your garden? What will you do for your garden? I created these sheets this week, put on some action items on there, and just remember every time when you see a thriving plant, what had to happen, and when you see that little half-dead one, what you need to do, right? So that's all I really have to talk about today in regards to caregiving, but I just really want to just leave that with you. Caregiving is a very hard field. If you cannot relate to it right now, don't worry. It is at your doorstep next, because that is something that is universal. Whether you are not caring for someone right now, you will be in your future, and it may even be yourself. So how do you plan for it? What do you do? How do you afford it? And what is out there in regards to it? I myself am a resource in the community. I've been in business for 13 years, and I've been serving Collin, Denton, Dallas, Tarrant County. There are limited resources here. I'm a dementia expert, and I would love to be a resource for anyone in this room that if you're not in that situation or you know someone who's on burnout and we want to prevent that, please give them my phone number or my cards. I would love the opportunity to be a resource for them. And I really thank you guys for being here, because there is no better time than the present, and there's no better time to be proactive in your health holistically. And I thank Tula for setting up this affair, as I just learned about it on Wednesday, because it's so important to be proactive. because similar to what was mentioned earlier, healthcare, I like to say, is tribal. THR is a tribe. Baylor, Scott, and White is a tribe, right? What else is there? Methodist is a tribe. And Methodist, THR, and Baylor do not communicate with each other. So who is going to do that? I have another business, and that's Fastest Labs. And it's a private pay lab. And I only talk about this due to the fact that many of us take, we have a pharmacist in the room, many of us take pharmaceutical drugs, right? But many of you may not know. Has anyone ever heard of PGX testing? Okay. You? Pharmacogenetic testing. Close, close. So PGX testing is pharmacogenetic testing. What that is a cheek swab. It's a DNA test that shows how your DNA reacts to medication. I use it for my dementia patients because dementia patients can't tell you how they feel, right? They can't say, you can get prescribed something and say, doc, that's 20 milligrams, it's giving me my stomach ache, blah, blah, blah. And then he'll go back and check it off, right, and adjust. But pharmacogenetics is going to tell that physician how your body reacts to medication before you even take it, right? So these tests exist. And of course, it is not paid by insurance, right? It is a private pay test. So I just put that out there because I think it's important to inform people. I use it for myself. I use it for all my dementia patients because I'm going to tell you this quick story. I had a dementia patient who many of you, if you've ever walked in a nursing home or walked in a senior care facility, you'll see a lovely lady sitting in a chair, just kind of leaned over, half asleep. She might be tired, I'm not sure. But many of them are over-medicated, right? And due to the fact of that, I had a patient that was similar to that. They weren't in a facility setting, they were at their home. And I told the husband, I said, we have to do a PGX test, because I just want to know more. When I did the test, it showed that her current dementia medications had a reaction with one of her other medications and caused neuropathy, and she was being over-medicated. So now we've changed the meds. She's able to participate in therapy because she's not having neuropathy anymore, because that was a side effect of the medication that she was being overprescribed. So I just put that out there because I just wanted to leave that little tidbit that there's ways around this. We just have to be informed about the information and that the options are out there. You can do a PG test with me, or you can do a PGX test online. You can order it online, get it at your house, swab yourself up, get the test. It's very important, and it's something that you want to keep in your wallet or in your phone. So if you ever go to the hospital or have a surgery, you show your physician, this is how I react to certain anesthesia drugs. So that's it. I appreciate the time, and I thank you guys, and I really am thankful to Tula.